Alright, grade 8, we're just going to work on going through the memo for exercise 7.1, question 1 and 2. And then I'll do a separate video for the revision exercise. So for question 1, it was word sums, and you have to change it into algebraic maths language. So the first one was the sum of 5 times a number and 3 is 43. So the sum means we are adding 5 times a number. A number, we replace it with x. So the sum of 5 times a number, so we're adding something to 5 times x, is equal to 43. And then once you've got it equal to 43, then your aim is to get the 5x by itself. So we're going to do the opposite operation, the inverse operation on the other side. And we are going to then balance it out. So instead of addition, we have subtraction. And so it's 43 minus 3 is 40. And we still got the 5x. So 5x, we need to get x by itself. So we're going to divide by 5 and cancel out the 5s. 40 divided by 5 is then 8. Then for question B, the difference between 64 and a number is equal to 48. So, and a number means we are working with x. Don't use any other letter, just use x. So 64 minus x equals to 48. So that is the difference between 64 and a number is equal to 48. So here I'm going to take the 64 across. Instead of addition like it was, it's now subtraction. So when there's no sign in front of a number, it's a plus. Take it over, we do the opposite, the inverse operation of minus 64. And then you'd be left with negative x is equal to negative 16 once you work that out. So negative x, get it by itself, you divide both sides by negative 1. Sorry, let's just make that a bit clearer. Divided by negative 1, and so it becomes x equals 16. If you had done it this way, you would have got maybe a mark. It's not really the correct way according to the wording, because once it says difference between 64 and a number, 64 is the main focus. So you'd start with 64 minus x. If you had done it with x minus 64, we would probably have given you something extra there. So you would take that 64 across and add it, because we have subtraction on the one side, we've got to add on the other side. All right, then for C, the product of a number and 12 is 108. A number is x, product means times, so it's x times 12, which is the same as 12x. So to get x by itself, to undo multiplication, we divide, and you divide on both sides. 108 divided by 12 is 9. For D, 54 subtracted from double a certain number is 12. So if it's from, you take the second as the second piece they've mentioned, and you write that first. It's like me saying, I take 2 rand from Joe. So Joe minuses 2 rand from what he has. So it's 54 is subtracted from double a certain number. Double means you're multiplying something by 2. A certain number is x, and so 54 from 2x means you're taking 54 away from 2x is equal to 12. Now some of you are going to battle with these wordy ones to start, but the more you get through them, the easier it's going to be. But luckily you don't get many of them in a test or an exam. So just try your best with the language here. It's more the English rather than the maths that's a problem here. So then I need to get 2x by itself, because that x is being trapped. So I'm going to take the 54 across, and instead of subtracting, I'm going to add to undo that subtraction, and that's going to get me 66. So then I have 2x equals 66. So I need to get rid of the multiplication, so I divide by 2 on both sides, and I get x by itself is 33. Last two for question 1. The difference between 5 times a number and 12 is 28. So 5 times a number and 12, the difference is 5n minus 12. Now you could have used x. We're just talking about a number. It doesn't have to be n. When setting up this memo, it doesn't specify you have to use the number x. So you could have had x, p, q, any letter that you wanted. So with this memo, when it was set up, the teacher just put in an n. Okay, it doesn't specify that you have to have an n or an x. So yours could have been x's right throughout. Okay, so you have 5 times a number is 5 times x, 5x, and then minus 12, the difference between those two numbers equals 28. And so then you first have to take the 12 across. I would say put it on the end. It's up to you. It doesn't matter. It's still there. It's still being added on the other side. And then you get 40. And now you have 5x equal to 40. And so 5 cancels when you divide. 40 divided by 5 is 8. Again, it doesn't matter what letter you use. Then for F, the quotient. Quotient means divide of 24 and a number is 8. What is the number? So it means you're dividing 24 by a number. So when you divide by a certain number, we have to multiply by that to undo it. Right? But once we multiply on the one side, you've got to multiply on the other side. So you end up with 8 times n is 8n is equal to the 24 by itself. Then I need to get 8n. I need to get rid of the 8, get n by itself. So multiplying, we undo by dividing and dividing. The 8's cancel, and I'm left with 24 divided by 8 is 3. Question 2 is a little bit easier because they've already put it in maths language for you. So it says, find the value of the variable that makes these number sentences true. In other words, solve for the variable. Get the variable, the letter by itself. So for the first one, you have 15 plus a equals 28. So to undo a positive number, we are going to make it a subtraction on the other side. So a is then by itself, and you get a is equal to 13. B minus 35 equals 27. So we have a subtraction. So on the other side, we're going to balance it out with an addition. And so B is by itself when we move the 35. And then you get 27 plus 35 is 62. For C, you have 3C equals 69. So C needs to be by itself. It's at the moment 3 times C. So we cancel out by dividing, but then you have to divide on the other side. 69 divided by 3 is 23. For D, it's D divided by 8 is equal to 12. So what I like to do is actually put it as a fraction, so you remember. So we would multiply both sides by that denominator. And so D is 12 times 8, and that's 8. That's where we get our 96 from. D is 96. Then 3e plus 14 equals 26. Remember, do the opposite of BODMAS. Take the addition across first, and it becomes a subtraction to undo it and balance. So 26 minus 14 is 12, and the 3e stays. So 3e equals 12. So then we need to get rid of the 3 in front of the e. We are multiplying by the 3, so we need to divide to undo it. 12 divided by 3 is 4, and e is by itself. F, 2f minus 10 equals 40. We're going to take that minus 10 across, and it becomes a positive addition of 10 so that we can undo the subtraction and balance out. Again, remember, it's the same as doing this. We want to undo that 10 so So they cancel, but you can't just add 10 to one side. You've got to do it to both to balance out. Okay, we don't need to see the long step though at all. Then you end up with 2f by itself equals 50. So to get f by itself, we're multiplying by 2, so we divide by 2 to cancel the 2's. 50 divided by 2 is 25. Hope that helps, and I hope you're understanding. The next video will be on the revision.